Are you able to request a certain nationality as air support? So if the Dutch are having a different rules of engagement and that wasn't effective on that target for you, you didn't get the air support that you needed, can you say, I only want the Brits or I only want the Americans or whatever other coalition force was out there?
Yeah, and we did have that ability in 2010, 11, 12, 13. Back then we didn't. We had what we had. So even as far as our helicopters, we were limited. We had one packet and that was it. So that was Black Hawks and Chinooks. But you always could request Apaches, which were the attack helicopters. But you're right, back then they were Dutch. I think it was only a year later they became American, which was great, which was awesome. So their rules of engagement were more in line with ours. So we could talk them on the targets. So if a Taliban, for instance, would shoot at the helicopter and shoot at us, and by the time the helicopter had done a lap and got its sensors on, they would put the radio and their weapon system down behind a rock and stand there so they wouldn't get blasted, because the sensors are picking up a lone guy in a field that could be a farmer. And we're like, hey, that's a guy shooting at you. So they do a couple of laps, and then by the end of it, we could manage to talk them on through us informing them of what this guy was. He's not a farmer. He's packing an RPG and a PKM, and he's got a radio. So hostile intent, blast him.
I suppose that's probably a lot more reassuring if you're going out and it's not, you're not playing tiddlywinks over there.
No, that's right. And throughout that I guess 7 or 8 years that we were at high tempo, we'd received more and more assets, so more and more different helicopters. We were getting net results, so they wanted to move the assets to where they were getting results and effects, and we were taking down high value individuals, mid-level guys, low value targets, as well as later the drug labs. So when you're getting good results and you're getting runs on the board, they'll tend to push assets your way, which worked out so well for us. So we got more and more helicopters, more and more UAVs, your Predators and your Reapers. So you always had an asset in the air that could do thermal and radio collection and infrared.
Is that frustrating though? If you're a new platoon in country and you don't have the rungs on the board for them to give you those assets, is it hard because you've got to sort of almost work under resourced to prove yourself, and then it's harder to prove yourself when you don't have the resources?
That's exactly the case. Of course. Yeah.
All right. So it's just okay. Good to know that the armed forces is doing. We'll leave that one there, Murray.
Yeah.
You deployed in 2009 as personal security to the PM. How different, was that enjoyable? Let's ask that.
No, it wasn't.
It was. No.
I mean, it's enjoyable as far as, I'm still single at this point. So it's enjoyable as I'm sitting around Maroubra, where I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment overlooking the beach, or I'm deployed overseas with the boys back on the tools, doing what I was trained for, staying at Dubai for maybe a week on the way over and maybe a couple of days on the way back. We get good deployment money, and I get my weapon system, my goggles and my body armor. So everybody wants to do it. Those little 2 to 3, 4 week jobs. Everybody wants it. Those PSDs, we'd call them, personal security details too. Back then it was Kevin Rudd and then Julie Gillard, and then it was a Chief of Army, Chief of Air Force, Navy, Chief of the Defence Force. So there's always somebody coming and going, whether it was Anzac Day or it was Christmas or Easter or whatever, or whether it's just a regular send your head of state over so they can have a bit of a chinwag about how the war's going and strategic policy and blah, blah, blah. So there's maybe 10 of those trips every year, and they were good trips to get on. But to answer your question, you're dealing with, the PM who's got his own agenda, who doesn't want to listen about which way to put his body armor on. And you've got all his PAs who think they're somebodies, they're nothing to us or nobody to us, but would look at us to pick up their bags, to put them on the C-17, not understanding that we're there as a security detail for the PM, for instance, and you've got everybody
Kind of
leaving
need your
weapons.
hands free.
Yeah, yeah. They were leaving weapons and backpacks and laptops on aircraft and you name it, it happened. So it's kind of funny and amusing at the same time as well as being frustrating.
I understand there's a rank system in the army, and I understand there's obviously professional etiquette that you need to adhere to. But do you have the opportunity to really be frank to someone like the PM or some of the higher ups, obviously, that you were doing the close protection for? Do you have the ability to be like, mate, this guy's like, I don't know, whatever, this general or whoever it was that was in charge, he's a wanker, get rid of him. Like, do
Yes,
you have the ability to say, we need this, we're not getting this as a support, like help us out?
yeah, yes, we do. And how we get that is it's not normally us whinging or bitching about the hierarchy that we take. It's normally us getting pushed back when we fly to Kandahar or Bastion or Kabul, with Australia not manning up and giving us the vehicles for the next leg or the aircraft or the QRF potentially stood up. So in case we got shot down, we'd have the Dutch as a QRF, or we'd have the Americans, a team that would fly in to secure us. So there's always a pushback about us getting what we needed to support a successful trip from the PM or the Chief of Army or Defence Force or whatever. But what you had is the ability to use their rank to get stuff done. So I did 4 months in Kabul, for instance, in 2011. So our boss was he was a lieutenant general. Sorry, wrong. He was a major general. So when I would ask for things, whether it was vehicles or helicopters, I carried the rank of him. So I could drop the hammer on colonels and brigadiers and majors because I carried the rank of my principal, which was, a major general. So that's how we got around that, and you could actually make stuff happen, which is quite a unique situation to have, right? Where you can request tanks or a QRF force or more vehicles based on you wearing their rank because that's the job you're doing for the day. So that's quite a unique situation to be in.
It sounds like there's a lot of, we want you to go and do this job, but yet we're not going to give you the tools to go do it. And we're going to make it really difficult from an admin point of view to actually facilitate what we want you to do.
Yeah, it is. And over the course of the war for us, it got easier and easier. Like there was a lot of red tape to start with, and there's kind of a lot of red tape at the end in 2013, 2014. But in the middle, there was no bullshit. That's what was so good about it was you didn't have to send a month early request for ammunition or medical equipment or food or transport, right? And there was no risk management policies, RMPs back then. You didn't have to submit a risk management to fly, 4 Black Hawks from A to B. You just got in them, you spoke to the pilots, you made sure everybody was aware of what's going on, everybody had been briefed, and you made shit happen. So that was an unbelievable atmosphere to operate in as a SF soldier, was to have, pick and choose whatever was there you could use, which was great. And it didn't happen before the war, and it certainly didn't happen post 2014 for us. But during those years, it was great to be able to reach into the war machine and pick out whatever you wanted for that particular job or that particular operation, and with no holds barred, with no red tape and no backlash. It was great. And that's why everybody wanted to make the most of it. Guys wanted to go back trip after trip after trip, me included. I didn't want to stay back in Australia. I knew it was going to finish at some point. And to do your actual job, to get paid really good money, to be, taking the war to the Taliban, it was just, this isn't going to last forever. I love it. I want to keep going back year after year. And everybody was just, couldn't get enough of it. Professional, mature soldiers who were just can't wait for the next trip next year.
Do you think that they've learned? I mean, obviously there was more red tape at the end. Do you think that they've learned that lesson in terms of future conflicts, that to remove the red tape and let the people, the soldiers on the ground, just get on with it and make it happen.
Yeah, and it's always a push and shove, right? There's elements that need to happen, and there's functions for every key position. They got to make sure that everybody listens to all these key positions. But who knows, right? Like I talk to guys in the unit now who just blow my mind when they're talking about how hard it is to book a range and just go and shoot pistol for the day. Because the war's over, so now it's back to full red tape and checks and balances and convoluted processes of just opening a range, putting a red flag up, shooting pistol, and going back. It's almost not worth doing. It's that hard and it's that convoluted. The computer system, the booking system, the this and that. So they do make it hard, and I'd like to think we got a lot of professional guys who push through that, but to book a week's worth of training is no joke these days. To book ambulances and food and weapons and armorers in case your weapon, malfunctions at the range, and there's so much that goes into a week worth of old school shooting that it's quite difficult.